there's clearly a separation between the book of the law and the Ten Commandments. Now, just to get an understanding of your own understanding, so know where you stand. What was the point of God making that?
Hold on. What do you mean by book of the law? You mean the old law?
Everything that wasn't on the 10. So when God gives Moses the law, right?
Yeah.
He writes, God himself, by the way.
Deuteronomy 31. James Bowen brought that up. The ark, the book that was stored that was put beside the ark.
Right.
Okay.
So God himself writes 10 commandments with his own finger on stone, which, by the way, this is the very base of the term. When we say written in stone, we know to mean permanently. This is the very...
So you're asking me if I... Hold on.
This is the original model that we get this term from, yet we want to say that this does not mean permanent. I think that's ironic, but that's...
Well, I'm trying to understand you. You. It can't be permanent. Shadow means it's not permanent. That annihilates you alone. But you're asking me...
Well, that's the thing. I'm not applying shadow to the Ten Commandments. That's not what it's referring to.
The Sabbath is included grammatically in what its shadow is, and that is temporal. There's no way around that. I've never seen an Adventist deal with that.
Well,
you're asking me... Hold on.
Hold
on. I need clarification. What are you arguing about the book of the law?
Okay, so
the ark? What is your argument about that?
So the book of this Colossians 14 here, or 2:14, is clearly describing, right, the book of the law. For example, in 14, when it says the handwritten ordinances that were contrary to us, if you go to Deuteronomy 31:26, it tells you that the things written in that book are a witness against us, are contrary to us. So it's the same language. It's
absolutely not. You are not even. You're on another planet. You're wrong. It is not the same language, and that is not a witness.
Are you saying that the book of the law is not a witness against us?
No, you're wrong. That the language is the same as Deuteronomy 31:26.
Is it a witness against us?
Hold on. Deuteronomy 31 most definitely says the book of the law is a witness. That's in the text. What you are wrong about is that this is the same language in Colossians. You're very wrong. I've got the Greek. Hold on, brother. It is not the same. And I've got the Greek side by side. That's how you do textual work. I've got them side by side. St. Paul is relying on the Septuagintal text. It doesn't line up with Deuteronomy 31. In fact, St. Paul intentionally doesn't use that term. He uses the Greek I just read, cheirographon. He doesn't use the term book of the law. He uses the term, by the way, yes, a physical book was placed beside the ark. That is not what is nailed to the cross. A covenant debt obligation is nailed to the cross, not the book of the law. That is why he avoids using that term. You got to do textual work, brother. That isn't how you do it. And I see that you're really lacking when it comes to that particular field. You're not doing in-depth work. You're looking at the English and saying, oh, look, it is quoted in Deuteronomy 31. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Not at all.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying, I'm obviously, I'm not saying it word for word. I'm saying that
not even close.
This, whatever this is referring to here in Colossians, is contrary to us, right? It's against us.
It is, but the book of the law, what is written in Deuteronomy 31:26, that is why James Bowen didn't want me to read the Greek. It does not line up. He is not hearkening to Deuteronomy 31. You're wrong.
Look, I don't deny that knowing Greek and stuff like that has its place, right? I'm not a Greek expert.
Well, brother, if you're telling the audience that this is referring to that, you got to know a little bit of it. With all due respect, no disrespect to you, if you're going to tell the audience, St. Paul is quote, you need to know a little bit or to have done the research.
I do know a little bit. I know enough to know that the meanings are the same.
Oh, you what's the same? What did you say?
Against us, and contrary to us mean the same as a witness against us.
Nobody's arguing that. Nobody's arguing it, but the book of the law is not referenced to Colossians.
That's what I meant by the same language. That's what I meant. I didn't mean it was the same exact literal language. I think you're taking me a little too literal. I meant there was a similar.
But against us can be used for many things, brother. You need to understand this.
I understand that.
It's general, brother, and I'm in a friendly manner, I'm educating you to say, oh, well, it has against us. It's tying this verse in. No, brother. Against us can be used in 1,000 different areas. It doesn't mean it's tying in that text when all the text before the word against us is completely different. Paul is not hearkening to Deuteronomy 31. I can tell you that right now. If he was, he would have quoted the Greek. Paul was never ambiguous. Paul was very clear to quote Greek. If he is quoting something, he would have quoted it.
Let me ask you this question then, right? And later on, he goes on to verse 16. He says, let no one judge you in meat or drink, or in respect a holiday or new moon or Sabbath days.
Yeah.
What are these things he's talking about here?
What do you
The
mean?
things that what is he talking about here? Is he talking about those feasts in Leviticus 23 here? New moon festivals and Sabbath festivals? Is he talking about that or not?
I mean, he flat out says it. What do you want me to say? I mean, it's right there in the text.
Okay, and where do we? Okay,
Let no one judge you.
Where do we find? But where do we find? Where do we find these new moon festivals and Sabbaths?
Leviticus 23 and Deuteronomy 16.
No, where in the book? They're in the book of the law, William.
You're asking me where you find what he's bringing up, and I just told you right now, Leviticus 23 and Deuteronomy.
Well, the point.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Is that
He
these
says,
things
let
are
no
written
one
here.
judge you. And you just asked me, where do we find what he's mentioning in Colossians 2:16? Where do we find it in the Old Testament? We find it in Leviticus 23 and Deuteronomy 16.
Okay, they are in the book of the law, though. The same book of the law, right?
So
because back in Moses' time, they didn't necessarily have a Leviticus 23, right?
What is your point? If the Sabbath is a shadow and everything is nailed
What
to
are
the
you
cross,
talking about?
what is your point? I don't
It's a
know.
simple point that he
I don't
is
think
talking.
the audience understands you.
The things that he's talking about, for example, the things that are contrary to us, the things that are regarding meat, drink, and Sabbath days, and our shadow of things to come, are in the book of the law. That's where all these things are in. That's
Okay.
a no-brainer. I feel like now you might even, I don't know.
And the Sabbath is not.
Okay, no, it's written in tables of stone by God's finger. He wrote it himself. Now, in your opinion, what was the point of God writing?
You're about to get annihilated, brother.
I'm really curious to know
you're
this.
about to get crushed, brother.
Why did God? I want to know why God wrote what he wrote in the book of the law, and then takes the tables of stone and personally writes them on
because
stone.
you ramble a lot and you sound very incoherent. Now I understand. You're saying Colossians 2:14 only refers to the book of the law that was against us. Sabbath, I wrote it down. Sabbath was written.
No, I don't even want. Look, the question was this: why did God make the distinction between the tables of stone and the book of the law? Why did He do that? He did that. I'm not doing that. He did. Why did He do that?
So let me ask you once more. No, I'm going to go to the first one. I'm going to go to the first one. No, I'm going to go to the first one because I don't let anybody get away with murder. You made one statement, and we can go to this next one next, and I'll annihilate you there.
Okay.
First, I'm going to go to this one. I don't let people get away with anything. You said the book of the law that was against us, Colossians 2:14 refers to that. And you said the Sabbath was written on stone tablets, so that can't be what was contrary to us, right?
Correct.
That's pretty bad, really, really bad. So let's go through it. Colossians 2:14, I'm going to put it on the screen for the audience. If that is their best argument, it's really bad. Let me put it on the screen for the audience so they can see why you are wrong. So against us doesn't mean written on paper, just so you can know. Against us is legal courtroom language. I kept telling you over and over. When you said, oh, against us, it's used there, it's used there. It's used all over the place. But you know what it isn't? It isn't manuscript language. That's your problem. It means something that stands as a legal charge. That is what those two Greek words mean. And you can look them up right now. You already know that. That exact language, as I just looked it up right now with my Greek, appears in Deuteronomy 27 all the way to 30. I have so many references. So even a stone can be against someone. Even a stone. It isn't manuscript language. So to claim that it's the book of the law. Hold on, brother. I need to finish my point. I allowed you to ramble and make horrible arguments. I'm going to finish my point. Even a stone can be against someone. The issue is not material. It isn't the material. That's where you are delusionally wrong. It isn't paper versus stone. You're wrong. And the 10 Commandments are called a ministry of condemnation. 2 Corinthians, St. Paul uses that language for them. He explicitly calls those stone-carved 10 Commandments a ministry of death, he calls them. That means that those stone tablets were against us in the exact way that they were in Colossians 2:14. So to say that the Sabbath is not included here, you're wrong. It is a covenant sign that brings legal liability. We're told that in Exodus 31. So he tells you right there, and by the way, there's no getting around this, he explicitly names the Sabbath as part of what is against us. Therefore, he says in verse 16, let no one judge you with regard to a festival, new moon, or Sabbath, because the bond that was against you has been canceled. So he tells you what was against us. Food laws, feast days, hold on, monthly observances, and dreadful for you guys, the Sabbath.